Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Remaking a Disney Song. So, I'm Micah from the Disney Time Podcast. If you don't know me, the last episode that I did, we remade When You Wish Upon a Star. So, now we're going to be taking a look at another Disney song. This time it's more contemporary. So, I have it here in my DAW, and let's hop into it right now. So, the song that I'm going to be remaking today, or showing you what I remade, is Just for a Moment from High School Musical, the series. That was a pretty slow song, but I remade it into a more poppy-ish. Well, it was already a pop song. So I increased the BPM. It was originally 90 BPM. Let's take a look at what I got from the track here. So I went on TuneBat. I looked for the key. It was in the key of D major. It says 89 BPM, but in order for me to match it, I actually took a look and it was 90 BPMs. I made the track, so if you take a look at my audio track here, because I got the instrumental vocals, I made the file tempo 90, and it basically over here on Studio One, what it does is it matches your tempo. So if you have it set to 128 here, when you set your file tempo to the proper tempo that the song is in, it will either speed it up or slow it down to the tempo that your project's in. So I have it in 128. All right, so you know that, and we know that here it is in the key of D major. Once again, I put it in a minor key, and I sped it up obviously to 128 tempo. So the first thing that I did, let's take a listen to some of the parts that I have here. One of the things I did was open up an arranger, and I mapped out the different sections that I wanted to put. So I broke it into different sections and I based it on the audio file. So let me solo the audio, and then we can take a listen to the audio itself. So here we go. I isolated the audio by using something called Spleeter. All right, so now Spleeter, made by Deezer, it basically uses AI, artificial intelligence, to split out the stems from a track into, you could do 2 stems, you can do 3 stems, or you can do 5 stems. In the 2-stem version, it takes out the audio from the accompaniment, the instrumental. And if you basically, but the thing about using Spleeter is you need to basically have Python, or I'm using Anaconda here, and you gotta program it a little bit. So it's a little bit more complicated to do, but once you do it, you can extract the audio, the audio from the instrumentals. So let's actually go into it right here on in the DAW, so you can hear. I actually processed it. I added a chorus, reverb, and here's an EQ that I did to it. I took out I put a high pass on it, and in the reverb, this is my reverb on it, I also put a chorus. This is the chorus on there. So if you want to listen to a processing, this is how it sounds with the processing here.
I fell in love with the only girl who knows what I'm about.
So I had to do that because it made it sound better. So once I had the vocal, I picked up some chords. I put the chords down that I wanted to use, the chord progression. So let's listen to my chord progression right here. This is my chord progression for pretty much the whole song. Here we go. I'm gonna play it. So those 8 bars, that's the chord progression I used for the entire song. I repeated it. I have the acoustic piano in there pretty much the whole time, except for these parts right here where I muted them. I wasn't using them in my arrangement. So once I got this chord progression, I built layers once again. I used it in pretty much all the layers that I have. Basically, I used it for everything from the bass, the sub bass, all my synths, my ARP, and my pads as well. But first, let's look at percussion, where we introduce everything. So let's listen to the percussion section first. First, I have this kick. It's just a sample that I pulled. I think it's a cymatics one. No, it's not. It's from a sample pack that I have. So let's listen to the kick here. It's a pretty standard 4 on the floor. So let's listen to it right here. So if you listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Pretty simple kick right there. Here's the snare. Added a snare to it as well. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. It's in between the kick, so it goes kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. So if we want to listen to both the kick and the snare, let's listen to them together. So it goes boom, 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 boom. Yep. And then I added another layer of hats. So here's the hats. So let's listen to kick, snare, hats together. So before, if you watched my When You Wish Upon a Star, I took, I put a drum rack and then I built on the drum rack. Over here, I'm taking audio samples and then putting them down on in the DAW here, using those audio samples. So here's with the hats included. Pretty standard. It's a pretty standard one that I used. So yeah, pretty generic loop. I added a chorus shaker as well, so we can listen to the shaker here. Let's take a listen to the shaker. Yeah, that's a shaker that I added into that loop. So let's put them all together here without the sub bass. So percussions. There you go. That's percussion. Pretty standard, pretty simple. So one thing that I did do differently for my build-up, actually, I took this this sample from the Cymatics pack, San Holo Light. So if you remember San Holo's song, I just wanna see the light, right? That song. I took his build-up, the build-up from that pack, the Cymatics pack, put it in for the pre-chorus and the build-up to the drop, which is the chorus. So let's listen to that right here. Here it goes. So yeah, that was that. I did do some processing on that. I actually did a lot of processing on all of my kick, snare, hats, drum loop, chorus shaker. It's pretty much an EQ. I EQ'd everything. On this though, I put an auto filter. You can see this auto filter right here. That's the auto filter. Check out the automation on here because this is I have an automation. Let's show my automation here. So that's what the automation looks like right here. It's tied to this auto filter. So if you take a listen to what it does. It's a build up. So it's building it up to include all sounds all the way till it's to the end, and then get it all the way to the end here. So yeah, that's the auto filter I put on that. I also did some EQing. So you'll see there's an EQ on here. This is my EQ for that, right? Also have an EQ on all of my kick, snare. So I also have this drum loop for. I'll let you listen to this. It's a full drum loop. I put it in for the very last chorus to differentiate from the other choruses. Let's listen to that real quick. So that's the full drum loop that I dropped in there. It was a sample also that I pulled. I had to put this limiter in because it was, so here's the limiter. Because the sound was clipping. So clipping meaning that it would go past 0 decibels here. And this limiter basically compresses it. So if it were to go over 0 decibels, it's going to limit it down. You can see it right here. That's where it works. I also EQ'd it. So you can take a look. That's my EQ on it. Just taking out beats, following this. Needed to make some headroom as well, because you want to make sure all sounds blend in. That's one of the things that you want to do. So if you look at my arrangement now, so actually that was percussion. All right. So now let's move into extra things that I added. So for Foley, I added waves, just a wave sound for ambience. I have it going through the whole song, but I also EQ'd it as well. This is my EQ for that, for the waves. Took out the highs, took out some lows, left a lot of mids. If you want, let's listen to it. It's just waves, you know, just waves going. And then I also, what I did as well, I have this white noise. And this white noise is sidechained. So it's basically pumping every quarter note. So pumps. You can hear it. It fills in pretty well with the rest of the percussion. So let's listen to including the rest of the percussion here. So see, without it, let's listen without it. Fills in a lot of the mids. Fills in a lot of the mids that you want to have here. So that is my additional Foley that's added in there. So now let's take a listen to the bass and the sub bass. This is my sub bass right here. I took a sample. What I did was, so Cymatics came out with a new pack, and they gave us some free samples that we could use. I used the ARP 2600 bass from this fantasy pack. So let's listen to the sub bass. Actually, I'm gonna let you listen to that here. So it sounds really deep. The thing that I added on here, sidechain. I added sidechain to everything. Instead of doing last time, you saw that I sidechained it to the kick. I made a dummy kick channel, and I sidechained to that. This time I put in Nicky Romero's sidechain VST. I put it on like every channel except for the percussion, because the percussion is what you want to come out, right? So bass, sub bass, synth. I put a sidechain on it. You can see what it does here if you listen to it. You can actually see it here in the VST. There it goes. So it cuts this sound out and it lets this sound through. So that's what you get that pulsating sound from. So I did that to that. And then let's listen to the bass as well. This is my bass. For my bass, I took a slap bass. It's just a presence. It's just presence from Presonus. Same deal here. There's some sidechain on here. So if you take a look at it, there it goes. Cuts out here, comes in here on the quarter note. All right. So that's that with the bass. So I have a few different synths here, and I also have an ARP, and I have some pads. So this I called the flutter synth right here. Hear that? No, that's still my ARP. That's my ARP. This is the flutter synth. So that's the flutter synth right here. So let's solo it. Let's listen to that real quick here in chorus number 1. So in addition to my sidechain, I also have an EQ on here. So this is the EQ on that flutter synth. I cut out the highs. There's a high pass on there. All right, so that's flutter synth. I also have another synth on here. This is my main synth. And I actually called it main synth too. So let's switch to that. Yeah, if you hear it. It's got a couple envelopes on here. There's the L1 right there. There's envelope 1. Here, let's play it. So that's the main synth. So now let's listen to my LFO saw synth here. So it's a process saw bass again. I think I used this on the When You Wish Upon a Star as well. But let's listen to what it sounds like. Because I also EQ'd this and I put the kickstart on there as well. So that's that right there. I added the ARP in the second chorus right here, the second chorus. So let's solo that. Let's take a listen to the ARP here. So the thing about this ARP is without so there's an ARP plugin that I have on here. Take a look at that right there. That's the arpeggiator. Take a look at what it does. You set the pattern on it, so it goes down and then back up. So if you were to hold a chord, which is what I was doing here, right? Look at what it's doing. I'm holding a chord down, but it's doing that because I dropped the arpeggiator on this sound. So if you listen to the second chorus here, let's just I soloed the ARP here. Let's listen to it. So it takes my chord progression and it breaks it to an arpeggio. So that's what that does. So now let's listen to my pads, because the pads I've been using in the verse. So I used it in the verse. Not only that, but I used, again, I used movement. So let's look at this pad right here. This is again, I took it from the cymatic sample, dropped it into sample 1. Basically, you can take what you can do is you can take a file, take the sound that you want from here, drop it into sample 1, and you can either chop the sample up into sections that you want. Or you can take the full sound. So I took the memory moog here. Let's listen to the memory moog. And it will play this whole section unless I were to chop it like this, and it will only play that section right there, right? That's what sample 1 does. But let's listen to the pad here. I'm gonna solo it. So that's the memory moog. What I have on here, I have movement. I showed you what it does last time, but I have let's see what I put it with on here. So it's a different setting that I used on here. This is called Into the Void. It's a preset. I didn't adjust anything. It's more toward this side. If you look at this, you can adjust it toward A or B. So here's A side, here's B side. You can make it do either this more or this more, depending on which part you place it in. Right? You can move this up and down. So if you can see what it's doing, right? So that's movement. And then I also have another pad. It's called Jupiter Bell. Again, it's from the Cymatics Fantasy pack. Dropped it on sample 1. And let's listen to what it does here. So that's Jupiter 1. So there we go. Those are the synths for you. I've got pads. I've got a bunch of different synths for the chorus. And I got my vocals. And then, of course, I have my piano here. It's just a piano. That's not the piano. That's Jupiter Bell. Here's the piano. That's the piano. All right. So, without further ado, I think I'm going to play the full thing for you so you can take a listen to what it all sounds like together. Another thing that I did was I actually post-processed it already. So I mastered it here on my mix, on my main bus right here. I added a limiter. I also have this A1 stereo control. This is pretty cool right here, actually, the A1 stereo control. It's a free plugin right here made by Alex Hilton. Basically, you can hit this safe bass and it adds stereo width to your whole track because I dropped it on the master. So it adds some stereo width to the full sound. Makes it wider, basically. And if you have safe bass on, it basically keeps the bass within your stereo. So it doesn't make it go out, and you won't lose your bass. So I dropped that on there as well as a limiter because you don't want it to clip. So without further ado, let's take a listen to the full track. All right, so if you saw the end there, I let it end over here, and then the outro actually ended right here at 73, but I let it go until 77, just so that you can hear the waves and it fades out. So that was the full track right there. So yeah, What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Did you like it? What did you think of the sound? I was going for more of like a future bass feel. I don't know if you guys felt it or heard it from there, but let me know in the comments below, and let me know what else you would like me to try doing next. Got some comments from on the Pinocchio one that you guys want to hear other stuff like Aristocats or something from the parks. And I've heard A Whole New World, so yeah, there's a lot of material for me to use. If there's something that's more contemporary that you like to hear too, that I could remake, let me know too. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you learned something or you enjoyed watching this. Until next time, keep watching Synths Disney Time. See you guys.